It's really easy to look at somebody who's super successful, maybe a multimillionaire who not only has money, but also has health and great relationships and a really ideal life and think, I mean, what gives? How is it that they do it all? And I know that you, like me, and like the vast majority of people, want to know, like, what secret do they know that we don't know? How is it that they do it all?
Hi, I'm Annette Bau, host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast and founder of the Millionaire Insider. My mission is to help you simplify the money game so you can create a financially secure and fulfilled life without having to have a PhD or spend countless hours on your finances. You're going to learn how to think like a millionaire, stop worrying about money and wondering if your financial house is truly in order, and instead spend your time doing what you love. With over 3 decades advising 7, 8, and even 9-figure millionaires, and now joining that elite group, I'm in a unique position to help you make the best financial choices so you can create a secure financial future and retirement you love. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast.
Today's free resource is our financial freedom guide. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/FFG. The Financial Freedom Guide basically provides you an overview of the 3 critical steps to create your financial freedom formula, including your inner game, which is your foundation, your game plan, which is your strategy, and then your outer game, which is the execution. And pretty much everything in life has those 3 components. This guide focuses in on your money, so it's absolutely critical. And while a lot of people want to have a great life, a balanced life, part of that equation is money, and this guide will help you. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/FFG. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/117. Millionaireseries.com copyrights all materials and intellectual property. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide any financial, tax, retirement, estate planning, healthcare advice, really any advice. By accessing this content, you agree to hold millionaireseries.com and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved. So what I want to talk about today is why I am talking about a balanced life. It's so cliche and it's like, oh, everyone wants to have a balanced life. And I think a lot of times it's really easy to look at somebody who's super successful, maybe a multimillionaire who not only has money, but also has health and great relationships and a really ideal life and think, I mean, what gives? How is it that they do it all? And I know that you, like me, and like the vast majority of people want to know, like, what secret do they know that we don't know? How is it that they do it all? And the first thing I want to just say is that what appears from the outside oftentimes is not the case on the inside. And I also think that the way a balanced life looks for one person is very different than it is for another. So what I want you to get today, as we're talking about really creating a balanced life and really having the wealth, the health, the time, the relationships, anything you want, to look at it from maybe a different perspective. My goal is that you're going to walk away having much more clarity of what you can do so you can create the balanced life you want. When I began my journey, like many people, I believed that once I had money, everything was going to be great. And it's easy to think that way when you don't have money because every decision you make is so impacted by money. Once you have money, you're able to make decisions that aren't impacted per se as much by money because you can do it. You know, whether it's flying first class, whether it's going out to really expensive dinner, whether it's buying something you want, you have those options that you don't when you don't have money. And I will say that while life is much better with money than without, the ultimate goal is really living a fulfilled life. And living a fulfilled life for you looks very different probably than what a fulfilled life for me or other people look like. So what I want you to get really clear on is what that looks like for you. It requires that we work every day to create that ideal life so that we can be living it. And while living a balanced life sounds so attractive, I mean, right? Oh, I live such a balanced life. One thing that has proven true over and over again is that it looks very different for all of us. And many overachievers like me have to use alternative methods to create that balance. And one of the most effective things I do is pretty much time blocking and scheduling it. So I know for some people, you're going to go, oh my gosh, I would hate to do that. I would hate to be living a life that felt scheduled. The only way that I can do the things that are important, spend the time with my spouse, spend the time with my kids, spend the time with my friends, work out like I want to, make myself a priority so that I can operate at my best. All of those things for me require that I have that scheduled in my calendar, because otherwise what ends up happening is my life is just constantly filled with work, because I could literally work 24/7 and still have not enough time. And it's just got to be where you've got to get clear on what that looks like so that you can do it. And I would say that's very true for other people that are very successful, not just with money, but in all areas of their life. Living fulfilled requires that you get really clear on that balance between accumulation of wealth, maintaining your health, managing your time, and growing your relationships. And today we're going to dive into really what you can do to better manage your balance and your life so that you end up where you want to go. The problem is you can just keep doing what you're doing. But the reality of it is there's two issues. One is the emotion that you're living with on a daily basis. When you don't have balance in your life, a lot of times you have a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, overwhelm, frustration. Whereas when you start incorporating more balance in your life, you have more peace, more calm, more clarity. You're operating at a much higher vibration. You're operating above the grid. Now, understanding why balanced life matters is fairly obvious, but the main thing I want you to really walk away with is the fact that when you live a balanced life, in my view, it allows you to have the time to do what you want to do, meaning you have choice. And so whatever that looks like for you, if part of your balanced life is sitting down on your couch watching TV and you want to have more time to do that, well, then you should do that. If part of it is feeling like you're in the best shape of your life, then being able to go to the gym and work out is part of it. The key is so that you can choose. And whatever you choose, you just got to be really clear on how you're spending your time. One of the things it requires is being really conscious on what you do, how you decide to live your life. What thoughts are you thinking? What actions are you taking? And do those choices you're making increase your energy, your vibe, how you want to feel? Because what I want you to think about is if what you're doing is really empowering you and making you feel better, that really is the ultimate goal. And for some people, most people listening to this podcast, money is an element of that. And money really needs to be an element of that, because without money, we can't make as many choices as we want. We have to have money to do things we want to do, right? But that said, it's really about being really clear on what your intention and goal are, and then having that higher elevation that's above the grid, because that's what allows us to have the feeling we want, which in my opinion is so much more important and so critical to living a fulfilled life than per se just having the money in the bank. Balance for many people, especially overachievers, initially especially see it as like perfection. But the reality of it is it's not at all about perfection. It's about intentional focus of your resources, time, energy, money. We only have a limited amount of time and really money. And I know people want to focus on, we have an unlimited ability to generate money or create money or whatever. And in some elements, I get that and I agree with that, especially on a metaphysical level. But in a reality level, right now, you have a finite amount of money. Bill Gates has a finite amount of money. We all have a finite amount of money. And same thing with time. So we got to get really clear on that. Now, you can have money and you can be miserable, and you can have no money and be miserable. Balance means living that fulfilled life. And the first step of that is getting really clear on what that means. Now, I want to give you a couple of examples of what really got me just really aware of the importance of balance early in my career. And it was really two different couples who were millionaires. And one of them was just so happy and free. And they really were fulfilled. Like they had challenges in their life, just like the other couple, but it was how they dealt with their life and their energy. It was so interesting. They had the ability to choose how they spent their time, what they did, when they did it, and with whom. The other one did too, but the problem was it was real difference between the two was the energy of it and how they were fulfilled. One was really fulfilled by looking like they had money. Like if you looked at both of them, you're like, oh my gosh, they both have so much money and they both were multimillionaires. So on the surface, it looked like it, right? You're like, oh my God, they both have money. But then when you start peeling away the layers, you start seeing like, oh, this one, they've got health problems. They've got relationship problems. They had all these issues and it was really important on how they looked. Everyone thought they had a lot of money. Everyone thought everything was intact. Whereas the other ones, they just didn't seem to have that attachment. And a lot of the things they didn't cost as much money. They focused more on growing themselves and their relationships and their experiences as compared to growing their closet with a bunch of clothes or cars. Now, granted, both of them had cars, but things that really did not bring them joy. Having the latest and greatest of whatever it may be, but not having those relationships and the things that can really bring you lasting joy. The second group, the one that were really, their life was more miserable and just seemed completely stressed out and really depleted, they were like on a treadmill. It was never enough. No matter how much money they had, it was never enough. And at the core level, we all know, if you follow me, is that that's your worth barometer. It's your belief in your self-esteem. And unfortunately, no amount of money is ever going to elevate your worth barometer. In fact, what I have found is that the more money you have when you have a low worth barometer, it just exasperates it. It's just like more of a desperate feeling, like you can't get out of this cycle of, I'm not enough, so let me get another million. And I share with you. I mean, it was somewhere between like 5 and 7 million net worth where I'm like, okay, another million is not going to solve this empty feeling I have inside. Because see, when you don't have money, you think, oh, if I just had money. And then you get on that thing, well, I've got a million, nothing's really changed. Then it's 2, then it's 3. Well, my friends, it can be 100 million, it can be 1 billion. If you don't have that internal worth, nothing is going to change. And that's really what I witnessed with that second couple was it didn't matter how much, and it didn't matter the jewelry. It didn't matter this. It was always something. And so it was kind of like the $1 million of jewelry they already owned wasn't enough. Oh, I've got to get the latest and greatest. And it was just a vicious cycle. And it was really eye-opening to witness that. And some of that seems like, well, obvious. But the reality of it is that at the core level, you've got to get clear on what fulfilled means to you. Now, most people would say a fulfilled life means being healthy. Okay, well, then are you eating healthy? Are you exercising? Are you increasing your body mass from a standpoint of weight training versus just sitting around and, you're thin, but you're really unhealthy? One of the best quotes that comes to light when I think about this is that right knowledge and right action equals amazing results. If you have the right information, you take the right action, you're going to have results that you love. All right, what I want to talk about just in an overview, because we're going to dive into wealth, health, and time, is that when I focus in on the wealth account, I'm talking about savings, income, financial clarity, and intentional spending. As far as health, it's your energy, your vitality, sleep, movement, nutrition, and mindset. And then your time is really, obviously managing your time, freedom of how you spend your time, what you do, including resting, doing nothing. And so many of us that were raised in the Midwest I come from a family of farmers and ranchers, and I grew up on a ranch for the first 5 years of my life, 4.5 years. We have a work ethic that is like no other. And in some ways that's really good, and other ways it's really bad. We never really were taught that resting's okay. And so it's easy to feel really guilty if we're just relaxing. Whereas other people rest maybe too much or they relax too much and they need to get a little bit more action. So it really is a balancing act also from how we spend our time. But, just like your 401k, needs to have time to accumulate, so does your time and every other aspect of your life, meaning we need to take the action, but then we also have to have the patience to let it come to fruition. You neglect your money for too long or your health for too long or even your time for too long, you're going to pay the price. And so we've got to be really clear and really focused on that, especially if we want to be living our dream life. One of the things that's critical when it comes to working in any area of your life is your worth barometer. And as you know, that's your belief in your self-esteem. There's 3 components to it. The first is your inner game. And that first step is really creating that foundation. It's like building a foundation, just like you would if you were building an office building. It doesn't matter if it's your dream life or it's a house or anything else. You got to have the foundation. When you look at your inner game, you want to really focus in on the right mindset. The mindset to where you're not overly hard on yourself, but at the same time, you're not overly easy on yourself. You've got that balance to where you really understand you've got to do the work, take the action to get the results. But at the same time, you've also got to create yourself, your body, your mindset, your entire being with respect and really with honor. Because I see it on both ends where it's like it's either too much or not enough. And again, it's all about the balance. And that's one thing that millionaires with amazing lives understand. There is a give and take on those 2 fronts. The next component, which is your strategy, is your plan. It's what you need to do to make that dream life a reality. What is your inner game going to include? Meditation, which I think is critical, yoga, positive prayer. Your wealth plan would be more relating to your income, your investments, your tax, your retirement, and your financial plan, along with your estate plan. And then the outer game is the execution, that you're doing what you need to on a daily basis, not only to have the mental calm, the mental clarity, but also to make sure you have your game plan for your money, for your relationships, for your time, all of that. Let's talk about creating that financial plan that buys you freedom and choices. You got to, first of all, look at that cash flow, separate out what you need versus what you want. Living without a spending plan or ignoring debt is just basically an anxiety road mine waiting to happen, meaning you might be getting away with it now, but it's going to come full circle. You don't get away with it. Everyone understands it if I said, okay, let's plant a garden. Now, I love arugula and my son's so adorable. Even though he's a chemical engineering major and he's super duper smart, he is so fascinated with like cooking. He's a phenomenal cook. He loves to garden. And it's so funny. I'm like, you got to do something with food because he's so good, but he doesn't want to be a chef. And so we'll see what he does with his degree. But the reality of it is that we all understand that if we plant the seeds, first of all, we have to plant the seeds. If we don't plant the seeds, I'm not going to have arugula. In fact, I went out there this year because normally they grow back, but there's none. And I'm like, oh my God, we needed to plant some new seeds. You got to plant seeds. You got to water it. You got to remove the weeds. And then you got to have patience. All those things we know. No one would say, oh, I can't believe I owned all day long and I don't have any arugula, or oh, I didn't water it, didn't grow. We would understand that, right? Well, the same thing is true when it comes to our money. We've got to really be conscious of the actions we're taking. What seeds are we planting? What are we doing to nourish it? What are we doing to make sure it is what we need to do? And then more importantly, what are we doing as far as patience to allow it to occur? Ideally, you want to automate your savings and investing so it automatically happens. And you want to do that first. That starts first and then spending's after that. And then you want to have a plan as far as replacing your income. If you're lucky enough to have a pension, you just need to be really grateful because pensions have been replaced with 401ks and they are just not nearly as attractive because they're not going to fund it even closely to what pensions did. Social Security, I mean, they're already talking about what cuts are going to happen. So you need to be prepared for that. And then guaranteed income, like through an annuity. Those are probably the 3 best sources for guaranteed income. There are other sources of income, just they're not guaranteed. So I want to at least encourage you to create your needs based on guaranteed income. Your want income can be generated through other sources, meaning like sources like real estate or even dividend stocks, things like that that are not guaranteed, but that can provide income. The other thing you want to be really clear on is that you have a strategic investment plan that includes your risk, tolerance, your age, your goals, your time frame, all of those things to make sure it's in line with what you need to do. And then make sure that you've got a coordinated big picture plan. The elements that are included in that are going to depend on you and your lifestyle. So I can't give you every aspect because no one is the same. A lot of things are the same, like taxes. insurance, estate planning, long-term care, all of those things. But again, make sure you're working with a qualified advisor who can make sure that if you need disability insurance, you have it. If you need life insurance, you've got it. All those different aspects. And then you want to create a plan first, and then you got to implement it and then work on it so that you keep it current and that you make sure that your dreams are going to become a reality. You then want to create a plan that you implement. Implementation is critical. And then you want to really work on it now so that you can choose how you spend your time later and what you do, and that you're not so freaked out and concerned in retirement that you don't have the options. One of the things I want you to think about is if you have guaranteed income, you're going to have peace of mind, and it's okay if you have longevity, because longevity is probably your biggest risk. But a lot of people don't think that through. And then they get to retirement and they're like, okay, this is how long you have until your money's going to run out. Not an ideal situation. I encourage you to do an audit and look at what drains you from an energetic standpoint, and then also what drains you from an energetic standpoint related to your money, like your debt, your obligations, maybe even toxic relationships. Anything that really is a drain on how you feel. The power of having a plan that includes how are you going to replace your paycheck, or how are you going to have enough money so that if you live to 90 or 100, you're okay. I mean, I have clients that are in their mid 90s, and I have clients who their long-term care, because they didn't elect to get a policy, is running them over 20 grand a month. My friends, it's something you got to pay attention to. So you got to be really aware of that. Time and money are two of the most valuable resources. So just start spending both clearly and with intention, meaning be really aware of what you say yes to and what you say no to. Because whenever you say yes, you're inherently saying no to something. All right, you want to simplify, consolidate your accounts. Your financial plan should be kind of like your GPS when you get in your car. It's going to get you to where you want to go, and it's going to keep you on track when you get off track. And then, as I mentioned, I cannot stress to you focusing in on those guaranteed income streams. I had a couple I worked with, and this is just so typical of so many couples, is that they were really nervous, unsure, worried. And once they created a plan, all of a sudden they felt so confident. Their uncertainty was replaced with certainty. They stopped worrying about money and really started enjoying their life. It was just powerful to see that transition. And even people who their primary focus in life is worry, when they have a plan and they know what's happening, they worry less. And I've seen that across the board. So I'm going to share with you 4 things they did. The first thing they did was they created a comprehensive plan. So they looked at their big picture. Then they assessed their retirement and taxes. This, my friends, can save you thousands of dollars if you coordinate it with your big picture, because so many people pay so much more in taxes than they need to. Third thing is they created a portfolio with a focus on total return, not just income. It was really looking at their streams of guaranteed monthly income, as well as their growth-oriented assets and their income assets that weren't guaranteed. It allowed them to really make sure that their needs were covered, and they also were able to have money for their wants, knowing that in the event the market really took a downturn or something unexpected happened, they could make adjustments to ensure that they didn't run out of money, but to ensure they were still living the life they wanted to, understanding that some years were going to be leaner than others. And that's something that, that might sound a little complicated, but the key there is really getting clear on what are those needs, what are those wants, and what are the sources of income. And the bottom line was a complete feeling of peace, calm, losing the anxiety and worry and fear they weren't going to have enough money. So I encourage you to really make that a priority. All right, you want to build meaningful connections and purpose. Wealth isn't just about money, it's about who you share your time with. I really encourage you to really determine who fills you up, who brings you joy. We all love being around people who lift us up, right? Who bring us joy. And we all have friends like that. We have family members like that. We hopefully have partners like that, children like that. And then some of us have some maybe family members or people that are somewhat inner circle that don't. Now Now, I'm not saying you get rid of them, but what I'm saying is you choose how you spend your time, because living above the grid and living in a state where it's more peaceful, you enjoy it, you feel grateful, you've got an open heart, is so much more enjoyable than not. And I am convinced that when we're around people that are super toxic or we constantly have stress, it puts such a stress on our entire health. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is people get sick because of it. They say disease is dis-ease. I encourage you to make it a point to schedule meaningful time slots in your life, just like you create money meetings. Both are critical. Let's move into health. Without health, wealth is really irrelevant. So what are some of the things you can do to deposit more health into your bank account? Sleep is the foundation, 7 to 8.5 hours. Now they're saying 7 to 9 hours, but you just got to get enough sleep. And you have to realize you're up about an hour to hour and a half every night. Hydration, 50% of your body weight in water. If you weight train or you live in a hot area, you may need to drink more. Movement, walking, stretching, weight training. My goal, I do about 10 to 12,000 steps a day. I weight train 3 times a week, do yoga every day, and then I go to a class 2-3 times a week. It's amazing. Stress reduction, meditation, in my opinion, is critical. Yoga is so powerful, especially restorative yin. Focus breathing in through your nose. The count of 8, hold it for 8, and then release for 16. Chants, positive prayer, activities that bring you joy. Ideally, you want to identify your routine. That's a game changer. Eating clean, when you're meditating, when you're doing yoga. I'm fortunate, in fact, that every morning I do 2 to 3 hours of inner work. I do meditation for about 30 to 40 minutes. I do yoga for about 40 minutes, and I go for a walk, which is about 30 minutes. It's amazing what happens when you really are feeding yourself. I have so much less anxiety, especially now that I'm meditating. It's amazing. You want to make sure that you've got a connection in your bigger plan. The biggest risk most people have is medical debt. That is the number one reason people file bankruptcy. And with a lot of things that are happening now with Medicaid, everyone should be concerned. Thank goodness I've never had a client who's needed it, but I've never had a client who's not been impacted by it, either with a child, a parent, a friend, a sibling, somebody who doesn't have money. Medicaid has always been the safety net. Well, now, they're talking about $1 trillion taking from Medicaid, and that's going to remove health insurance from like 14 million people. I mean, this to me is devastating. It's going to have so many ramifications people are not considering. When people can't afford to feed their family, they're also taking money from poor people that can't feed their kids, so they're not going to have food at school. I just think it's a problem. I think it's a problem because it's allowing those of us that have money to get wealthier and the people that don't to get poorer. And my friends, if you have never studied history, just go back and study revolutions. You have a society with only wealthy people and poor people, you have a problem. Now, I'm not about handouts. I'm not about just giving people money without doing things, but I am about common sense money strategies. And we've got to have some plan that helps people that don't have money get to that next level. And if you don't, you've got a problem. And if people that have worked hard their entire life don't have a safety net, it's a problem. And I think you're going to see crime go up. There's just a lot of factors. And so again, I'm not here to convince you on what you believe, but a lot of times people think, oh, well, that's them, because they're not thinking about their siblings. They're not thinking about their kids. They're not thinking about their friends, other people that it impacts. It's something that's real and is going to likely be very problematic. So the first thing you want to do is get adequate insurance and then stay healthy. Scheduling health checkups should be like a financial review. Some people do too many financial reviews and not enough health checkups, and some people are so focused on their health and not enough on their money. You want to have a combination. But you also want to ask yourself, what can I do today that adds to my health account, that adds to my wealth account, that adds to my time account, that adds to my relationship account? And then just as a reminder, a healthy worth barometer, which is your self-esteem and belief, drives better decisions in all areas of your life. Ignoring your health at any expense of building wealth is just a dangerous, slippery slope that you're not going to win. All right, managing your time. How do millionaires manage their time? Well, the first thing is we understand it's not a zero-sum game, meaning if you take time in one area, you're going to lose it in another. The invisible currency is really time, and it's one asset we can't get back. That's why millionaires are so focused in on their time. It's amazing. What action can you take? The first thing I encourage you to do is to track your time for 1 or 2 weeks and determine, are you investing it or are you wasting it? Eliminate what's no longer serving you. Prioritize what matters, and then you want to delegate those lower value tasks. Automate whatever you can. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in the trenches of advising millionaires is that most millionaires protect their time just like their money. Like those two things are critical. It's top of mind. And combined with that is their health as well as key relationships. The one thing I will say about most multimillionaires is a lot of people don't get into that inner circle, that upper circle that's got those close relationships. They've got a lot of people in their circle, but there's not a lot that get up there. They are very clear and very conscious and very intentional about what they say yes to and what they say no to. Warren Buffett has a quote about the fact that, successful people say no. Super successful people say no to almost everything. They are very careful about what they say yes to. My friends, I would agree 100%. So there you have it. So let's conclude really living the balanced life. It looks different for all of us. You got to decide. The secret is to determine what a balanced life looks like for you. You got to get off that perfection wheel and understand that the key is your overall balance, not what happens in 1 week or 1 month. You got to have a solid plan, and then you got to execute it so that you can determine how to spend your time and what you want to do, how you choose to spend your time. Who do you spend it with? What are you doing? Some additional resources to just help you make this a reality. I encourage you to go to themillionaireinsider.com/SR. You can access more support there. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/SR. If you want to really get more clarity on how millionaires think, I encourage you to download the Millionaire Mindset Guide. You can access that at themillionaireinsider.com/MMG. And then I encourage you to share this episode with somebody in your life who wants more balance or maybe needs more balance in their life. And maybe it's somebody that's in your inner circle. You want to let your money and time reflect what matters most to you. For most people, it's their health, their relationships, and their long-term goals. And you don't want to wait until you don't have your health or you don't have the relationships or it's too late to achieve your goals to figure that out. I encourage you to track your time for 1 week. And when you track it, I want you to really look at where is your energy going and where is your money going. Your energy is going to be from a perspective of who you're spending time with, how conscious you are, all those things. One small shift in your formula can lead to extraordinary change. The goal is progress, not perfection, and continued focus on what you want to create. And that, my friends, is what allows us to live a balanced life we love. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm Annette Bau. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.
If you love the content of this podcast, please follow and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of episodes, and also give us a 5-star review and share a comment. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on taking another step to create a financially free life you love. If you're not sure about your financial future or that it's in order, or you are ready to stop worrying about money, or possibly the fear of becoming a bag lady, ending up broke in retirement, or you simply are ready to know your financial house is in order so you can have a bright financial future, please go to themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. And that doesn't stand for non-sufficient funds. It stands for Next Step Finance. It's the next best step of what you need to do so you can avoid an NSF notice in your future. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. The number of women who were not broke or poor while working or married is staggering. The entire mission of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast is to ensure you have the information for you, your family, your friends, anyone who's willing to listen to it and apply it so that you can create a financially free life you love. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. NSF. Until our next episode, take one action that will help you create a financially free life you love. I'm Annette Baou, your host. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.